All right, it would appear we're live. Came in a couple minutes early just so that Tracy could find me on my Craft Around the Clock segment here. Hello, everybody. It's been a while since I've been live. I have wild hair tonight, so no judgment. Worked all day. Hair's bad. Hair is bad. But I'm here. All right. Just gonna wait for Miss Tracy to tell me that I'm shared in. It'll be another minute or so. How's everybody doing tonight? So this is the project we're going to be painting. Hi, Miss Sue. Tried to be prepared as possible. I rushed home. I worked till 7 and then rushed home, but I got my board semi-prepared for our next step. Sorry, I'm just watching my phone because I'm waiting for Tracy to share me in. And there she is. Hello, Miss Tracy. Long time no see. Great to be back. All right, I guess we're live now on my page and the Craft Around the Clock group. So I do have the link if I don't have it on this post. I think I was a little bit hasty in not putting that on, but I will post it on top of this group or this post. Oh my goodness, let's get our thoughts together. Okay, so this is the project we're going to be painting tonight on Craft Around the Clock. Make sure you pop over. My point was I was trying to say, make sure you pop over to Craft Around the Clock and follow that page and follow my page if you're new to me. All right. Hello, ladies. Okay, we're going to get started because we have 45 minutes to see how far we can get on this project. Not going to guarantee that I can get it all done, but if I don't, then I will postpone the second part for my next Craft Around the Clock segment, which is next week. So if we don't get it all finished tonight, we can finish it on the next one. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. This is one of those bamboo paddles that you get from the dollar store. That's what I'm painting on. If anyone was wondering where I got that. Hello, Shelly. So I went ahead and painted it all white and I got my tape on here. I just used 1/4-inch painter's tape to tape out my stripes. And these don't have to be perfect any way, shape, or form because this is like a primitive painting. So, you know, if you have a little bleeding and all that jazz, you don't have to get too worried about it. So I'm just going to grab a brush here and get it wet, and we're just going to put on some, I think I'm using Poodle Skirt Pink. I'm going to put on the stripes. Now you can use any color you want. This is just the color I chose. I will have this template available in my shop after we're finished, or after tonight. I didn't have time to finish it up. I've been a busy girl. Didn't have time to finish it up and get it posted on my shop, but I will do that and post a link for it as well if anybody wants to paint this one. So we're just going to quickly get, now I put 2 coats on my first one, and I think I'm only going to, hi Karina, I'm only going to put 1 on this one. We're going to see if it's okay lighter. It doesn't really matter. We're going to grubby it up with a little bit of burnt umber when we're finished anyway. So do a little sanding, but I think 2 coats might have been too much. So we're going to try 1 tonight, and it'll be a little bit quicker too. Let me know if you're new to my page. I haven't been live for a while in Craft Around the Clock, so I might be new to a lot of people. I know we have a lot of new people in that group. So I'm Yvette from Old Times Paint Parties, in case you're wondering, who is this woman and where did she come from? I have been around Craft Around the Clock for a while now, but I just haven't been live in quite a bit. Okay, so let's give that a quick dry, and then we'll pull that tape off. Thanks for the sprinkles. Hello, Miss Kelly. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Dolores. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on here. Sorry, I had to go out and come back in. My messages were frozen for a second. And it seems they're still doing that. So I'm just trying to get them to move again. All right, quick drying. So we have 45-minute segments now, that's how long it's been since I've been on Craft Around the Clock. I think because the last time I was live, they were still 30-minute segments. So it's been a while. Hi, Brenda. Thanks for joining. First time watcher. All right, so yeah, this is a little bit thinner or lighter with one coat, but we're gonna go with it. I just have to dry it somewhat well before we put on our burnt umber over top of it. We're gonna kind of do a wash over the top of it to make it look a little more prim, a little more grubbied up, you know. That's the plan. Spend all my time drying things. All right, I think we're gonna give that a whirl. Now we're gonna pull this tape off. So we're just gonna, you know, basically have stripes on here when we're finished. It's obvious, Mrs. Obvious. And again, if you know you have a few little chips on there, that's okay, because we're going to do a little sanding anyways, even after. So if it does, you know, it's not meant to be perfect. Primitive paintings are fun to do because you don't have to be precise or perfect, and they're meant to look that way. So it's kind of nice that you can paint a little looser and not be too worried about what's going on. So I have my baby wipe here. I'm going to grab some burnt umber, and I'm just going to do a complete wash over the top of all of it. And I can show you kind of what it looks like before. So this is quite bright and pink, but you can see how the wash that we're going to put on it kind of tones it down a little bit, and that's kind of what we're going for. All right, so my burnt umber. So I'm just going to dip straight. You can't see me dipping into that. It's over here, but I have it on my wet wipe, and we're just going to rub that on there, all over the whole thing. Now, with the wet wipes, you kind of have to get it on there, let the paint sit for a second, and then wipe back, because you'll wipe it all right back off again if you don't. But I want to get those white stripes. I want them to be a little bit murky. And I mean, you can leave as much of that on there as you want. If you want it really primitive looking, then leave more. I pulled some off of here, so I'm just going to put some more on. And then I think that's good. I'm going to just leave that the way it is and dry it. Get rid of that messy thing. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, hopefully we're going to be able to get, you know, as we get this prep stuff done, and then we'll get to painting our bunny. Hi, Miss Tanya. How are things in Oz? Aw, thanks, Kelly. Thank you for saying that. All right. So again, I'm trying to get it as dry as I can just because I need to sand a little bit and I don't want to, and because we're painting on bamboo, bamboo doesn't, the paint doesn't penetrate it. So it will just kind of pull right off if you're not really careful with it, because the paint just kind of sits on top of it, which is, you know, a little bit scary. It doesn't sink in like pine or whatever, but we're going to just kind of sand these edges a little bit with my sad looking piece of sandpaper I have here. I want to get that hole a little bit, and then we'll be ready to transfer that bunny on. So you can just, you know, kind of mainly get the edges. Like so. And then if you know, want to put some more kind of scratches in it here, you can do that. Oh, there, I took a big old chunk off there. See how it kind of just sits on top? And that's okay. I'm not going to sweat that. But what I am going to do is see if perhaps it'll take a little bit of that burnt umber on that edge. Maybe just darken that up a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Get some in that little scratch there. And then I think we're ready to slap our bunny on there. Okay. All right. Quick dry. We'll bring our line drawing over and get basing this guy in. Hello, Cheryl. Miss Mary. I see lots of names that I don't recognize, so if you are new, thank you for joining in on my live, my segment. It's good to be back. Took a little hiatus there for a while, I did. All right, let's get crack-a-lackin', ladies. Crack-a-lackin'. So this is our little line drawing that I drew. And this would be what you would get in the template. You would get, of course, you know, one with black lines, you know, nice crisp lines. This is my sketch. So I would give you a nice crisp line drawing. So I'm just going to transfer on all these little areas while I'm talking. And if you haven't transferred things on before, this is graphite paper in behind my line drawing that I'm just tracing this design that I drew onto my surface. But you would get the line drawing and go back to my other story, go get the line drawing and the supply list of the paint colors that I use for this project. That's what comes in the template package. So I will have that posted. I don't know what's going on there. We'll fix it up when we paint it. Have that finished when I get off this live. I will post that and give you a link. I'll be more organized for the next one, I promise you. But I am out of practice, so I have to get back into the groove of things. Going live is a art in itself, because if you do a lot of them, you get really, you know, seasoned, and you don't forget things and all that. But I'm like out the loop right now, so forgive me. Give me a little grace for my absence. All right. So basically we're just going to put the whole thing on. I'm not going to put those carrots on because that'll be another step after. And those buttons, we're not going to put those on. I'm just going to get these outlines so that we can base in some colors, and actually you can actually watch me paint. We are going to get to painting, I promise. Promise you. I'm just going to hold this to do this bottom part down here of her dress and her little feet, and then we should be good to go. What's our time like? Oh, we still got a half an hour. But if you haven't tried to draw a primitive painting of any sort, they are actually, you know, if you draw at all, or even if you don't draw, they're very simple to do because you don't have to worry about straight lines. And, you know, if it looks wonky, it's sort of supposed to look wonky. So it's kind of a fun thing to try and do. All right, I think we're good there. So my bunny ears got a little wonky here, so we're going to fix these up a little bit. All right, so the bunny parts we're going to do with a little buttermilk. And we're actually going to start painting now, ladies. It has happened. We got to the painting part. So now we just have to go in and base all of our places. Now, if I get quiet, it's because I'm concentrating hard. And I will check your comments here in a minute. I don't want to miss anything. And if I do, I will reply after the live is over as well. Sometimes hard to follow comments and do the thing at the same time. I know some of these ladies are so good at it. We're just filling in the ears. We have those ear centers we have to fill in with a different color, but we're just doing the main parts. So when I was painting this last night, and I don't know if any of you ladies, I know that some of the ladies I have in my membership are in this live right now, but if you haven't painted before, we always say trust the process. When I was literally painting the demo for this, I had several moments of doubt as I was painting it. And I thought, I don't know. I just don't know how this is going to turn out. But as time went on and I added more details and things, it started to get better. And then I started to really like it. So when they say trust the process, they actually mean it. It's a true story. What kind of brushes do you use when painting, and are you using that? Right now I am using some Dynasty brushes. Dynasty is the brand, and it is black silvers. I use black golds and black silvers on a Norm. They're my favorite brands. I am a brand ambassador for them too, so not only do I love them because of that, but I am an ambassador because I love their brushes. But that's my faves. There's so many different kinds out there. But this size that I'm using is actually a number 4 round. And I always say too, like when you're painting, whatever feels comfortable in your hand to get the paint on there. I mean, you don't always have to use the exact brush that I'm using to base coat or whatever works for you. Everybody kind of has their favorites and what works. And I've actually even used cheaper brushes to put base coats on. Usually the only time that I really favor a brush and always have to have it is when I use my angled brush to shade. That's normally where I won't stray from that. But as for base coating, I'm not partial to anything. I use rounds, flats, you name it. Sometimes when I'm lazy, whatever's closest to me. That's how that works. So just getting the arms filled in here. And then this color will also be on her feet. And then we'll get blocking in her dress. All right, we have her feet down here, same color. And I'll probably have to put another coat. You can see that, you know, normally you have to put a couple coats on there. To get some good coverage so you can't see your background through it. That's usually how I determine how many coats I use. Sometimes 2, sometimes 3, depends on how transparent the paint is. And I'm using DecoArt paint too as well for these colors. Okay, so I think we might be dry up here already, so I think I'm going to go ahead while I still have this color on my brush. We might as well add our second coat up here. All right, I kind of always say that for me, the base coating is always the, and I don't like to say boring part because it's really not boring. It's the not so exciting part. I like doing the shading and making it come to life, but this is kind of the necessary kind of step that we have to do to get to that fun part. So that's why I always say bear with me while I'm base coating, because it's not always the most exciting thing to watch. And I think, you know, for demo purposes, we're going to just go with the 2 coats and move on to the next step. Are you guys okay? Is anything lagging, or is my internet doing funny things to you, or is everything good so far? Sometimes it freezes. I'm not sure if it's doing that tonight. I shouldn't even say it out loud. And it's usually when the child is gaming at the same time and stealing my bandwidth. That sweet child of mine. All good, Shelley. Thank you for letting me know. All is well. Okay. So it's kind of good that that dried fast, so I could... Oh, excellent, Karina. Thank you. I do have some paint classes coming up too, if anyone's interested. They are on my page, some online classes. If you want to check that out after tonight's Craft Around the Clock is finished. I think there's another lady after me tonight that's coming on at 10 Eastern. I'm not sure what time zones you're all in, but when I'm finished, I think there's another crafter right after me. So hang around and check out what she's got to offer this evening. Feels like Friday to me. I don't know. I guess it's because I don't work tomorrow. I took the day off, so I guess it is my Friday, sort of. Sorta. Just means I don't have to go to bed early. So I always think, oh, feels like Friday. All right, we're going to move on to the next color. You're probably bored of that one. Okay, so dress. I used a little bit of Sage Mint. And some of these colors, I don't even know anymore what is discontinued, or I really have to go to DecoArt's site and see what's what, because I'm going to get a bigger brush. Because they discontinue colors on me, and they're usually my favorites. Why? I don't know. Why do they do this to me? But I'm not sure if this one's still active or not. But I have so many paints. It's a obsession, you know. I hoard them. So I have a lot of colors that are discontinued now, so I still tend to use them. You guys that are in my membership are up on those things. Sue, Rollis, and Karina, you probably know if Sage Mint's still active or not. But we're using it up. That's what we're doing. I'm going to flip her upside down so I can get this side. Just made her dress a little bigger there. All right, I'm going to get a smaller brush to get in that around her collar. Needs more paint. And then for the collar and her bow and the little slip that hangs out the bottom of her dress here, her sleeves, I'm just going to do with a mix of white and a little bit of slate gray in there. Just kind of mix it together on my brush. So we're going to let that dry. We're going to move on to her sleeves, bow, collar, and slip. Who said I'm a paint hoarder? Yeah, me too, Sue. I know. It's an addiction, really. It really is. All right, so we're just going to mix a little bit of that together on my brush. I didn't really want that much gray, but it's okay. We can go with that. Wanted it more on a very light gray side. It's all right. We'll get this first coat on here. All should be good. So like I was saying, we definitely are not going to get this project completed, but I am back next week for Craft Around the Clock. So I will just save this little project and we can finish it on my next segment. And then we'll get this end. There's little ends to the bow up here. Everything kind of looks so foreign before we start getting the shading done, I think, but Trying to stay out of wet paint here. Anyone that is with me tonight that knows me, I love to stick my hands in wet paint for some unknown reason. I'm not a really messy painter, but sometimes I have more on me than on my project. So this first coat, you know, I want these to be more white, but I think that it was good to do this first coat in a little bit of a darker shade, and then we'll put white over it on the second coat, and then it should keep us from having to do so many coats of white to cover. I'm just going to do this little slip down here. And we're going to put another coat on this little lady's dress. All right, we're getting there. So inner ears. I did use a little different color pink. I used a little bit of blush pink, but I mean, you could use the same color that we used for the background. It doesn't really matter. We're going to use a little bit of blush pink. All right, second coat on the dress coming right up. And I think we're going to stop at 2 coats on that too. All right, that's looking pretty good. Clean that brush out. Hello, Miss Shirley from Virginia. I'm just going to give this a quick drying. And I'm going to put another coat of white on that, all those little gray areas. And then I think we can get to shading in a little bit. So we should be able to start making some things happen here. Thank you, Mary. Sage Mint still available. Sweet, thank you, Karina. It's one of my favorites. I do like this color. Most excellent. That makes me happy. Because I think I'm down to my last little bit of that. Have to get some more. I'm just filling in this bottom part of her dress while I'm drying here. All right, so let us put a little bit more white on our bow and things like that, and then we should be good to go. So I'm adding white now on top of this so that it pops a little better. And I'm going to start shading out her body parts and her dress. And hopefully you get to see a little bit of that before we have to leave tonight. Maybe she'll start taking a little bit of shape before too long here. Sorry for all the flipping. It's easier for me to reach what I'm doing. And we may have to touch that up before we work on those bows and sleeves and things. But I'm going to leave it for now after I get this coat on here, and we're going to start shading out bunny parts. We'll start up there with the ears and face. Okay. All right. Getting there. Okay, so this is where my angled brush comes in. Now, I am just using, this is where I was talking about, this is angled brush that came in a kit that I had. I think it's a Faber-Castell. I'm not sure, but I just grabbed it because it was closest, and that's what we're going to use for tonight anyway. So I'm grabbing some burnt umber. I guess I still have lots on my plate. I'm going to use that. So we're going to shade some burnt umber onto our ears, and I'm going to go on this underside. So this is where things will start to take shape a little bit. Once you start getting your shading on there, they start to look like something. Not sure what those, got some chunks there, ladies. What's going on here? I think it was from my sanding, my lack of sanding abilities on there. All right, so that's kind of the first coat on that ear. We're going to do the other one. Thanks for the hearts. And then we're going to come along this bottom edge over here. I'm determined to, in the next 8 minutes, to get, some of this shading done so you can see it start to take shape a little bit. All right. And then on this underside of the ear, we're going to come along there. It's another fun thing about primitive paintings. It's a lot of burnt umber. It's not, if you get it dirty in places, it's okay, because that's what it's supposed to look like. It's kind of a very forgiving style of painting. Then we're going to go along this bottom edge of the face. And then just under that bow, we're going to add a little bit under there too. Move on to the arms. And I'm going to go along the body, and then there's a little, I don't know how to say it, divot or a little bend mark here in there. So we'll put that in and then shade around the bottom edge here. And then we're going to go, there's a little ruffle on her sleeves that we're going to add later, but we're going to go along that edge. And then this, sorry, I'm going to flip it around again. Sorry, ladies. I'm going to go along this side. Do the same sort of thing. And again, I may come back and touch those up a little bit and darken those up, but we're just going to keep moving on here. And then I'm going to go along the edges of the feet and along the bottom edge. And just under her dress there. Okay, so next up I'm going to take a little bit of peacock teal and shade a little bit on my dress. And then we're going to take some burnt umber and do the same thing. We're going to dirty up that dress a little bit. All right, so we're going to take some of this peacock teal and just go along our edges of our dress and around her hands. Hello, Miss Teresa. And then we'll go around her collar a little bit. And down the other side. And then we're just going to take our brush and kind of scuff some of this peacock teal through the center of her dress. It's like I said, this is the fun part of primitive paintings, is it's so loose and you don't have to worry about messing things up and don't have to feel you have to be perfect. Now we can put a little bit along this bottom edge. We're down to 4 minutes, ladies. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of that on my brush and I'm just going to go straight through her. I'm going to add some water to that and tone that down a bit. And just kind of scuff some of that blue peacock teal color randomly through her dress. Easy peasy. And it looks like, oh my goodness, what is she doing, right now? Again, trust the process. I'm just adding a little water to my brush every now and again just to tone that down. We're going to give that a quick dry, and then I'm going to add the burnt umber to her dress to show you what that's going to look like. But that's basically it for the dress. Very simple. And I'm going to show you the finished project again just before we leave so that you can see where we're headed. And like I said, this is going to be a part 2 of a craft around the clock segment for sure. All right, so now we're going to take our burnt umber and then we're just going to go along the edges right over that color we just did. And you see how that mutes it down and adds that nice primitive look to it. We're going to go over here on the other side too. And go right over that shade that we already put on there. And now this style isn't for everyone, I realize, but I like many different styles, but I do love painting these paintings because of the nice loose style. And I think it's great for beginners too, because you don't have to feel so conscious of it. And then we're going to do the same thing with the burnt umber. We're just going to scuff that right through there. And I think we're down to our last minute or so. But we're going to do the same thing and just add some water to your brush and bring that through there. So I want to show this. So this is where we're headed. You can see how, it's slowly getting there, but there's many steps to go yet. So again, we're going to work on this some more on our next segment, and that will be next week. So make sure you pop back in to find part 2 next week, and we'll just keep finishing this little lady up so that you can watch the whole process. All right. Thanks for watching my segment tonight, and thank you for welcoming me back. So lovely ladies that you are. All right. We'll see you all soon. And make sure you stick around. There's another craft